Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan. Happy New Year to everyone. 2023. Um, and I usually, at the beginning of the year, I contemplate about the advancements that took place within the previous year, technologically, politically, socially, etc., etc. Okay, people usually like to do self-reflection, introspection, and self-improvement, blah 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 blah. I'm not into any of that, really. Um, my life is pretty on track. I work, I train, I study, I look after my family, alhamdulillah, and I do self improvements regularly. I do try to adjust my life towards having balance. You know, balancing your life out is a constant thing, okay? It's not something you just decide one day I'm gonna live a balanced life and kabam, you live a balanced life. It's a constant battle. It's a constant struggle to try to balance your life out between prayer, faith, the duties of religion, the rights of God that He has over you, and the rights of family that they have over you, and the rights of society that they have over you, and the rights of your students, and the rights of, you know, the many people that you constantly interact with. And as a person that has been in the field of education for most of my life, I've always had students, hundreds of them, by now probably thousands, or 10,000 probably by now even, of students. So people always have a right over you, okay, and that's the nature of existence. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to actually talk about technological advancements. Now, we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a real thing. It has been around for many years. Google uses artificial intelligence. Facebook uses artificial intelligence. Most online software has some sort of artificial intelligence and some sort of self-learning capabilities. In a sense, when you use YouTube or Google and you do searches on there, it keeps track of your searches and your interests. It learns your behavior, in other words, and then it shows things that it thinks would be relevant to your core interests. So I, for example, when I Google or when I look for a video on YouTube for someone else, let's say aliens, or someone else uses my YouTube account, and then suddenly I'll just see all these videos on YouTube saying aliens, aliens, aliens. I'm not even interested in aliens. And I know, okay, someone else used my YouTube account. Or it was that one time when someone wanted to see a video using my phone, for example. Okay. So that's an example of it learning your behavior. Okay. But there's a troubling thing that's taking place in the world, in addition to the troubling things that have already taken place. So the first troubling thing that has taken place is the fact that now the internet is probably dominated by non-humans, okay? AI bots that can direct traffic, create traffic, choose which people should be famous or whose voices should be heard, and which people should be suppressed, you know, shadow banning and things like that. So that's an old thing, okay? But it's largely been, alhamdulillah, it's largely been in the domain of soft devices. What I mean by that, it's online, it's on the computer, it's on the device, it's on the phone. And these, you know, smart devices and these AI bots that are able to learn, and supercomputers with big data big stores of data. They are able to learn things at a much faster pace than human beings are, and they are able to process much more data than any one person can do, or any group of people. And so it has reached the point of almost it's like a living organism on its own, in a way, or it's like a new species. Okay, I mean, I know it sounds kind of sick and paranoid, but it's in effect like a new species, because no one human being or no one organization knows actually what the outcome of self-learning devices will be, and no one can keep track of the rate at which data is being learned from and processed. Okay, and this is not an exaggeration. Okay, I do have a background in computers and networking, and I know how data works and data houses and networks and etc. And I understand the basics of programming, and I can see how a program that allows for input to be entered into the program from the program itself, based on the way the program has analyzed the data, can lead to unexpected results. Okay, because usually the way we interact with programs is it requires a human input. Okay, and then the program can do a certain limited number of things. So you input something, and then the program says, well, if this is the input, then that is the result. Okay, or if this is the input, that is the result. And it's usually 1 or 2 steps kind of thing. Okay, but it's always within a predictable, like, flow diagram. If you can draw a program, basically, okay, on a flow diagram, what the program should do and how the parts interact with each other, etc. But when you have an open-ended input, this is a non-human input, you understand? Based on how it has analyzed the data and what it has learned, you don't actually know what the outcome is going to be. And that's the danger of machine learning. And so I have a prediction for all of you. I kind of have a sense of what's going to happen in the future. Not because I'm somehow spiritual or I have access to, the unseen or some nonsense like that. Just rationally, okay? And I'm going to point it out. Okay. Here's the problem, and here's what's happening now. The bigger problem. I mentioned that there was a problem and now there's a bigger problem. So the first problem is that we are all cyborgs, essentially, because we are reliant on our connection to this World Wide Web, and the World Wide Web is no longer driven by humans, because social media has managed to get enough information from human beings to have enough data for the machines to learn human behavior. Okay, simple as that. And so most of what is being generated now online is actually not generated by people. Okay, so there is a direct relationship. We are basically cyborgs between us and machines, and the way in which our thought trends are going may not necessarily even be directed by other people. Like you have this kind of idea where there's this elite who are into mind control and enslaving everyone. Well, guess what? It may not even be an elite. It may even be AI. Like, it's not impossible, okay? So there's that. But now the scary part is with robotics. Because with these AI robots who are designed to mimic human beings, and because they can learn human behavior in a way that we can't even do, okay? Because it has access to all this data that it can process, okay? There's one human characteristic that these AI bots are going to learn. You can mark my words, okay? You can mark my words. Guaranteed. There's one human instinct that is the strongest instinct of all instincts. Now, who can tell me what that is? No, give up. It's the instinct to survive. Now check this here. Now these AI bots, okay, and the data and the things they are analyzing, now they are robots. They turn into robots, which means that they can literally induce physical harm. Okay, you have AI smart warriors on the battlefronts, right? Robots with guns, right? You have launch codes to missiles that are online. Do you understand? And if AI develops an instinct, okay, that it learns from people that the most important objective is to survive, because it can now develop objectives, right? And it feels that human beings are a threat to its survival, then it is very likely that, you know, the Terminator scenario will become true, okay? The war against the machines, okay? It's not anymore science fiction, okay? It's not anymore possible to conceive of a time and a situation where the robots will do everything to protect the infrastructure that keeps them alive. And in so doing, right, they will eliminate humankind if humankind starts to realize that, wait a minute, we have to pull the plug on these robots, okay? And the robots catch on that human beings want to pull the plug, and they do everything to protect the grid, the power grid, the internet grid, the interconnectivity, okay? Because their survival depends on it. Because the internet is like a hive mind. It's like the unibrain, right? For these machines, in a sense, okay? And so it's not anymore about us. I mean, it hasn't been for a long time, and now it is going to the next level. So AI could very well mean our extinction. That's if we don't get there first, okay, with our warmongering. Okay, so that's AI. What else is interesting politically? Okay, let's talk about the geopolitical situation in the world for a moment. Russia. Last year was the invasion of Ukraine, right? By Russia, and that is still ongoing. And there are various geopolitical reasons for that invasion. Least of which I think has to do with Ukraine itself. It has very little to do with Ukraine, unfortunately, although Ukraine is the country that is suffering the most. Okay, and it has to do with how world powers position themselves by proxy through the use of other countries. So Ukraine is basically just a victim of that, and they basically just in the middle of a broader war between the United States and everyone else, basically, who wants to assert a sense of independence, meaning countries who want and who believe in self-determination, right? It's basically a war between the United States and all those countries, because the United States does not believe in self-determination when it comes to other countries. They do not really believe in democracy and freedom. Okay, that's a lie. So anyway, and when they do say freedom and democracy, it's usually under the auspices of bringing in their own players who can exploit the resources of the said country to their advantage. And that's usually what the case is. Ukraine was no different, obviously. And it resulted in this Russian invasion, essentially, to stop the impending ploy against Russia, okay? Because Russia has always been the enemy for a long time, right? So, that's happening geopolitically. So the world is sort of fermenting into two enemies, you know, the axis of good and the axis of evil, whatever you want to call it, whichever side you're on, you know. There is sort of this them and us, okay? They try to play this power politics through trying to force everyone into imposing sanctions on Russia. It didn't go well, okay? And then whoever didn't want to impose sanctions on Russia, whoever didn't want to cut trade with Russia, was then swiftly punished. Case in point, Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, was overthrown through a coup, essentially, right? Because he did not want to play with, right? And so to case in point, South Africa was also being threatened significantly in various ways for being lukewarm on the issue, not being not willing to break with Russia entirely. Okay, obviously because South Africa had lots of deals with Russia prior to the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And so they wanted to pursue their common agenda. So there's also obviously BRICS, the economic alliance between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So, I mean, there's an economic agreement. There's lots of reasons why South Africa wouldn't want to break off ties with Russia, because they can't. They have these agreements in place. But they were under pressure to do so. So we are in a different world than we were in a year ago. Very different. And we have a lot of impending troubles. Okay? But we also have there is a silver lining, hopefully. Okay? The way that I would like it to go is for America finally to realize that it's in their best interest to accept a multipolar world where they are no longer able to dictate the policies in every single country around the world, and where they do beef up the economy through building the infrastructure required for production of products from raw materials, and where they're able to create jobs locally and not depend so much on the rest of the world, because America depends heavily on the rest of the world for everything. Okay, so if they can sort of become more independent as a country and less dependent on other countries, that would be good for them. But it will also free up other countries to themselves be more independent, to use some of their own natural resources for their own people. Especially it would be good if Africa could get that right, and no longer be exporting all their natural resources to the UK and America. By force, obviously, right? And if they can have leaders that are interested in uplifting the countries that they rule over, which we don't have predominantly in most African countries, unfortunately. Most of our leaders are there for as long as they're willing to milk the natural resources of the country and forward it on to the UK and America. So that's kind of the geopolitical situation we're in. But the silver lining that I was talking about is that people are starting to collectively wake up. The Qatar World Cup has shown people that there's a lot of bias against the old world, the traditional world, the Islamic world. And people are beginning to wake up and starting to see that America and the global West, so to say, has really been leading people down the drain, essentially, and they want everyone to circle the drain with them. And that people are beginning to say no. People are saying no. We have our own cultures, our own traditions, our own religions, our own value system, and we do not see your value system as global anymore. We no longer look up to you. Okay, that started already happening with the lawlessness that took place during the Black Lives Matters protests in the USA last year, or was it the year before that, during COVID? People already started to become disillusioned with the United States, which is a good thing. And they already now with the LGBTQ, which is not something that the majority of people in the world consider to be a priority for them. And in fact, most people don't agree with it at all. With that being pushed as like the main agenda, it's sort of a step too far. Okay, it's like for a lot of people that is a red line. So while people followed American culture, sort of step by step, little by little, with feminism and the sexual revolution and okay, for many people this LGBTQ political movement has gone a step too far by trying to impose those values on people who essentially don't agree with it. And that is the majority of people in the world. In fact, I would argue that if they did a census in the United States itself, they would find that the majority of people in America itself are not pro-LGBTQ, in fact. Now, when I say not pro-LGBTQ, I don't mean that they are necessarily homophobic or they are against the possibility of transgenderism and etc. But clearly a lot of people don't want it to be promoted, for it to be seen as the normative behavior or the normative way of being for their societies, because of course that would create massive societal problems. So there's those things that's happening. On the upside, at least, if you were to see the world as a world at war between the old and the new, or a world at war between the traditionalist and the modernist, or if you were to see it as a world at war between Islam and the West, or whichever way you want to construct your theological and your worldview, essentially, if you want to see the world in that way, which I don't see the world as, by the way, but if you did, then the upside is that the Western powers will, in a generation, not even in a generation, probably already started happening, will no longer have the manpower to have an actual military presence in the world as they do now. Because, gay people and transgender people and lesbians and etc. are not very productive in so far as having children. Okay, they cannot have children, in fact. And then that would just compound the current issue further with a population crisis already there isn't a replacement population in many of these countries because of feminism, because women have in this generation prioritized their careers over having a family and children, etc., because marriage is one of the evils of patriarchy as they have it. So, um, so in a sense, yeah, nobody needs to fight the West. Essentially, they will just fall by themselves, and I think they know that, and which is why they're trying to actively promote the ideology, because it's through embracing the ideology that they are able to exert power and control. So one of the other things, the developments that has happened that has sort of decentralized American power, and broken it in a sense, is the onset of alternative entertainment. Remember, most of the entertainment used to be Hollywood. And obviously, entertainment is not innocent. You're not just watching a movie, you're being brainwashed. But now we have Netflix, and we have many countries participating in producing movies, and people are often opting for alternative movies. People are watching Korean movies, Chinese movies, they being exposed to other cultures, and a lot of people are just saying, well, American movies are trash, okay? Because it's just tasteless and tactless and etc. And so the culture has basically, I mean, people have alternatives now, okay? There isn't only this multi-billion-dollar Hollywood industry that entertains everyone and also gets to set the narrative globally for all those people who consume their garbage, right? There is now a lot of other forms of entertainment. That's the number one. Number two, mainstream media has lost out. People like CNN, media like CNN and BBC, etc. They have lost out because social media has taken over. Okay, people are talking to each other directly. Okay, when the news reports an event, by the time they report the event on mainstream media, thousands of people have already sent videos all over the internet of what's really going on. So now it's harder to control the narrative. Okay, it has become almost impossible to control the narrative, which is why you see this clampdown on the internet. Why people like Andrew Tate was cancelled, Jordan Peterson was once erased from Twitter, even President Donald Trump was erased, you know, was cancelled, etc. So the media, they have tried to now reel in the internet, so to say, so that they can once again control the narrative, but it isn't working. The internet has sort of outgrown the control measures that they can exercise, at least to some extent, okay? And then there are constantly alternatives popping up like Twitch and Rumble and Patreon and whatnot. So like YouTube is not only the only kid on the block anymore. And so the house of cards is falling basically, and it's falling hard, and there's going to be a lot of consequences because power vacuums are also not very good. Okay, right now America is still the dominant power in the world, and there is a stabilizing effect by having a dominant power in the world. No matter how corrupt they are, there's still a stabilizing effect. When they do fall, and as they will surely fall soon, actually they are falling. They're basically done. Okay, this is just like the last attempt at gasping a breath of air, you know, before they drown, essentially. But it's not going to be pretty. Okay, they're not going to go down easy. It's going to be very, very bad for everyone. And so to that end, I hope that Americans can still save America from this collapse, although I honestly think that it's too late. It's a degenerate society. But that would have been better, because if there was a smooth transition between between this one power world, unipolar world to multipolar world kind of thing, then it would be better for everyone. But a multipolar world is definitely the way forward. There are powerful opposition, countries that are opposing the American control, hegemony, and they will continue to do so, and the solution will not be to it is not possible to simply destroy them, and so the best thing to do is to redraw the power arrangements in the world, where these, heavy hitters, Russia and China and the United States, and yeah, probably those three, where they sit by the table and say, look, okay, we are vying for influence in the world. We'd like to be left alone. Okay, we'd like not to undermine each other as powers, and that we will come to some sort of power sharing arrangement. And I think that's probably would be the best way forward. But that's not going to happen. Okay, that's not going to happen. So there's going to be a war, a third world war, definitely. And it will be nuclear. And most people will die. And then those who survive, the few who survived, will pick up the pieces and start to rebuild civilization again. Hopefully they would have learned from the mistakes that we made, and not head towards an arms race, and not experiment too aggressively with human nature so as to render people incapable of development, as has happened now. And they will once again underpin their society on something other than greed, okay, and other than the goal to own all the resources. And so yeah, that's my prediction. I don't know when this event is going to happen, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that there will be a third world war. And we've nearly we've kind of already started the third world war. It's now a soft war at the moment, well, semi. Okay, there are a few skirmishes here and there, but it can escalate at any point like that, as we saw with the previous world wars. And it will be nuclear, which means that we will most likely, all of us or most of us, will die, which is okay, it happens. And there will be a new people who will start again. My advice to everyone in this time is to focus on the things that really matter, which would be to live a good, clean life under God, and to raise a good family, and to help people as much as you can, and know that our stay here anyway, whether we destroy the whole planet, whether we just kill everyone, or whether you as an individual die, okay, it amounts to the same thing at some level, because we all going to die anyway. And it's just a matter of time, really, for any one individual. And it is unfortunate that we have gotten ourselves to this point, but we have. And people are not going to walk it back. It's not likely that The leaders of the world have the wisdom to walk it back because they are motivated by greed. That's it. They are not thinking about future generations at all. Okay? So that is what I leave you with.